Hello. In this video we're going to look at an edge case where the patient has two sets of results, but the earlier set of results actually come in from the lab after the later set of results. But before we do that, let's consider the normal case where again the patient has two sets of results quite close together, but they come in the right order. Now commonly you'll only have one set of results per, as we call it, visit. So each blue line you see here in the history is where you've closed off a set of results, and you probably only get one set of test results per blue line. But it is perfectly possible to get more than one if the patient has more than one set of tests done quite close together. So that's what we're going to simulate now, just by adding the results manually. So let's put some results in for last Friday, and we'll only do full blood counts, but we'll make the hemoglobin a little bit low, and everything else we just put in range. Like that. We'll just do the full blood count. So there we go, and the hemoglobin has been flagged as low. Patient's on female reference range, so the lower limit is actually 115. But then perhaps today, before we've had a chance to deal with that, for whatever reason, they have another full blood count done, and the hemoglobin is just in range this time. Everything else pretty much as it was. There we go. Now we can see here that for this latest open visit, we actually have two sets of test results now. We have those from the 5th, where we have a hemoglobin of 110 and a WCC of 6.3, and we have those from today, the 8th, where we have a hemoglobin of 115 and a white cell count of 6.2. But if we look in the top panel here, the bit where we see all the flagging, we can see that the results shown up here have been superseded. The ones from the 5th that were up here have been superseded by the latest ones from the 8th. So the hemoglobin is now showing 115 instead of 110. And that's in range, so it hasn't been flagged itself. But Dawn remembers that the previous result was 110 and that was flagged, and we hadn't dealt with that. We haven't ticked it off as being reviewed. So it's still showing a tick box here. But it's not showing an out of range for this result. What it's showing is what we call a previous result warning. So if I hover over that, it pops up a dialog saying previous result warning. The results from the 5th had a value of 110. So what I can do, I still need to tick that off, but that's acknowledging that I've seen this previous result that was flagged, even though it's been superseded by one that's in range. But what happens if those results come in the wrong order? So we get the later ones first and then the older ones. Well, let's try and do a similar thing with the UNEs. So if we just have a look at sodium, and just have a look, what we've got upper limit there of 146. So what we'll do, let's add a result from today. Where we say it's 145. Potassium can be that. All of these can be in range. Okay, so we'll add those. They're now appearing along here. Nothing flagged. But then, you know, they also had UNEs done on the 5th, and those have just been, for some reason, the lab has released those later. So let's simulate that by adding them manually. And let's say this was just out of range this time. Now what's happened is that should have been flagged, but it isn't, because it hasn't replaced the latest result. The analysis is always done on the latest result when it updates the intervention in the interventions tab here. And sorry, I'm pointing at hemoglobin, but you can see here the latest result, because that came in first, the older result doesn't supersede it. And because that's in range, this one doesn't actually get assessed. So what Dawn does is highlight the fact that they was received out of range. If you come down here, you can see the yellow highlight, and it tells you here, received out of sequence, not out of range, sorry, out of sequence. So these came in after these later results, so they were never actually analysed to see whether or not they were in range. Okay, they're not the current results. This is the most important one, but it's important perhaps to just have sight of those. Now that's fine if you're looking at the patient record, you can see, but if those came in after you dealt with this record, you need a way of spotting them. And you can do that on the front screen. This out of sequence result received in the last 2 weeks tells you if anyone's received out of sequence results. You can click on here and you can find the patient and you can take a look. What this filter will do, the list view itself will actually show everybody who's received them in the last year, but it will break it down into how long ago they were. So you've got, you know, in the last 7 days, and then the last 14, and then over 14 days ago. What we've done on the front screen, so that you're not always leaping in, is just show ones received in the last 2 weeks. So if you go into here, but you will actually see if there are older ones too. That's because you can't easily remove those, but it's just a way of helping you make sure that you have looked at all the latest ones.